Namaskaram, dear all. Welcome to this episode of group discussion for children. The topic we all know, it's been announced before. It's emergence of human race in genetics and cultural perspective. So we will limit the talk to that only. Emergence of human race, keeping genetics and cultural perspective in mind, so that we don't digress. The time available just about 3 minutes per speaker. So let me invite the first speaker alphabetically. What I have, Giri, you're not going to speak, right? Okay, Kritik, can I pin you?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Just a moment. Kritik, I'm pinning you. Over to you, Master Kritik. Kritik is joining us for the first time. So, Kritik, welcome to this gathering.
Thank you.
So, we are looking forward to listen to you. Over to you, Kritik.
Yes, sir. So, good morning to all present here. I am Aikipik of class 8B studying in Alpha School, Coimbatore. So, today I would like to share my views on the topic human race from genetic and cultural perspective. So, a race is a grouping of humans based on shared physical or social qualities into categories generally viewed as distinct within a given society. Today, we don't refer to other species
Kritik, can you be slightly...
we commonly did.
Just a
In this
moment.
phrase, the human
Kritik,
race.
can you be slightly slow? We are unable to follow you. Be slightly slow, huh?
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, sir.
No issues. Yeah.
Yes. Today, we don't refer to other species as races, but at one time we commonly did. In the phrase the human race, the word essential means species. Soon after race entered the language, one of its meanings was mankind, and it often was preceded by the adjective human. Modern scholarship use racial categories as socially constructed. That is, race is not intrinsic to human beings, but rather an identity created, often by socially dominant groups. Different cultures define different racial groups, often focused on the largest groups of social relevance. And these definitions can change over time. When people define and talk about a particular conception of race, they create a social reality through which social categorization is achieved. In this sense, races are said to be a social constructs. These constructs develop within various legal, economic, and socio-political contexts and may be the effect rather than the cause of major social situations. While race is understood to be a social construct by most scholars agree that race has real material effects in the lives of people through institutionalized practices of preferences and discrimination. The idea of race, as we understand it today, came about the historical process of exploration and conquest, which brought Europeans into contact with groups from different continents, and of the ideology of classification and typology found in the natural sciences. According to me, when we hear the word human race, the only thing which comes to my mind is discrimination. Even today, many are getting discriminated in the basis of their race. This would make the person who gets discriminated depressed. So, I would like to conclude saying that human race has a simple and effective meaning, which is humankind. So let's preserve it for the future generations. Thank you.
That's really a wonderful start, Master Kritik. Very crafted, very measured, and nicely researched speech. He talked about the social constructs and social requirements, and everything boils down to the social identity and being together. So, possibly, he is given a trigger to tell about how your genetic mapping and how your cultural understanding finally boils down towards living a harmonious life, understanding each other's limitation while not discriminating, but still understanding the minor differences which exist in the society worldwide. That's a wonderful start, Master Kritik. Nice having you had here. You spoke for the first time with us and you've done a great job. A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, to Master Kritik. He's just of class 8. I really appreciate for a young boy who took the challenge to come and speak. Kritik, you must know there are speakers who are, good about 25, 30 years of age. So do not get intimidated by their seniority. Anyone can speak the right thing. One doesn't have to be very senior age wise. What matters is the the, the the stuff what you speak, that matters the most. Wonderful. Thank you, Master Kritik. We're
Thank
very
you, sir.
very proud
Thank
of
you.
you. Can I request the next speaker, Miss Anushri Prasad? Anu, I am pinning you.
Yes, sir.
Anushri
Good
from
morning, sir.
Kannur. Can
Good
I have
morning,
your
sir.
video on, Anu?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, please.
Sir, I'm having some network
No
issues, so
issues.
I connected with my phone.
Acha,
Yeah.
okay. We were seeing you this way. Yeah, anyway, please continue. No problem. Hearing you is more
Uh,
important. Yeah, speak.
so, actually, today's topic already told by sir. So, uh, we have seen in pictures during ancient times, human lived in forest. So, they never had access to any kind of technology that we are having now. Slowly, they discovered weeds, fires, and they started cooking food. Slowly, they they didn't have any god like we are having now. They were not separated by caste or in the basis of color or by gender. But now, when we look at us, we have different cultures, language, religion, and even gods. We have different gods. So, I want to tell you about a theory called Aryan invasion theory. So, I don't know how many of you heard about Aryan invasion theory. It's a very interesting theory. Most of the people say that it's a baseless theory. But in India, we even have politics in the basis of this theory. So, this theory has a finding that most of the North Indians' DNA have some matchings with West Eurasian people. Uh, actually, this actually created a South-North divide in our country. It says that Aryans are the people who came from Middle East, and they was white-skinned people, and they destroyed Indus Valley civilization and started to rule the actual people, actual Indian people. They were dark skinned and they were called Dravidians. So, and because of this, when they destroyed the Indus Valley civilization, these Dravidians migrated to South India. So, the theory tries to say that North Indians are actually light skinned people and they are the descendants of Vedic civilization and South Indians are the actual Indians who are Dravidians and dark-skinned people. So, um, and we have varieties of religion and caste here in India. So, some believe that caste system emerged from this theory. The so-called Aryans created Hindu religion and placed themselves on top of it in the higher ranks. So I don't know the credibility of this theory, but I found it very interesting when I just got to know about this theory just a few months ago. I want all of you to just Google about it. So that's it. Then, if we talk about caste system, those people who are engaged in certain works become a caste. That's my finding. Like carpenters, it's a job role as well as a caste in Kerala. Okay, and if we talk about fishing, those people who are engaged in fishing became a different caste. So this might be a reason of formation of caste. And our ancestors were not able to drink milk. It was just 9,000 years ago we got ability to drink milk without being ill. Then we started dairy farming. So this is how a kind of different job roles and caste might have emerged. It's just an example of the way that the traditions and culture practices can influence the path of our civilization, like evolution. So another example is the emergence of language. Like it's a great achievement for humankind to develop communication. Like language is a part of our culture. So when a group of people get isolated with no knowledge of any kind of language, then they start produce some sounds relating to object and later transform into some words. And the most popular words get acceptance, and those which are not so important, like most those words which are not used by everyone, like it will dies up. So the most interacted they interact with when they interact most with each other, their vocabulary increases. Similarly, languages are formed. In India, we have varieties of languages. Like, this is how languages might have formed, and it is helping the mankind to communicate.
Yeah, Anu, thank you. I know you've done a lot of research. Let me tell you, today I need to close the discussion slightly early. I've got a meeting to attend. That's the reason. Otherwise, yes, generally we don't stop in between because yeah, but the topic is very interesting, and I'm very sure all of you have done a lot of research in this. It's a very close to heart topic. So I'm helpless in requesting you to stop now here, and I'll request the other speaker. I would request all the speakers today, if you can limit your speaking to about 3.5 minutes, that will be nice because I'll have to wind up and I'll have to give chance to everyone. Wonderful, Anoop, what you said is very true. The Aryan invasion theory is the one which actually formed the basis of. It may be conventional, it may be connecting the dots together or whatever it is, but yes, the world understands. It has given a very strong basis for the the way how civilization moved. The human race in Indian subcontinent developed further. It has got a very big say, and yes, we agree. And what you said is absolutely right. It was all profession based and cultural identity based groups were formed that has played a very significant role in emergence of human race per se throughout the world, more so with our country. Thank you so much. That's a wonderful way to put across. Yeah, you may like to next time no try change the orientation of your screen. I also request the children to use your laptop if you have a laptop, because in the handset, mobile handset, what happens, the moment someone calls you, the Google Meet cuts your call, so you have to come back again and join. There is that disturbance may be there. Anyway, thank you so much. The next speaker I call upon is from the ID Deepak Joshi. I think it is Mr. Sojan Jose and team joined from SSI Koppal. Mr. Sojan, is this your ID, Deepak Joshi? Yeah, it's in a classroom environment. Very nice. We can't hear you, Mr. Deepak. Mr. Sojan, are you there? Hello? Yeah, I can see the children. Okay, I'll quickly get back to you. Can I? Yeah, you there? But we can't hear you. Can you check your mic? Say hello. Check 1 2. No. Can you remove? Can you remove the mic and speak direct? You've logged in through a laptop, right? Yeah, remove the mic and speak direct. I think the laptop mic will pick up. Okay, meanwhile, I'm pinning Kyatika. Kyatika, are you there? From Badmer?
Yes.
Kyatika, okay, Gitika, both of you there. Who's going to start?
I'll say.
Okay, Kyatika, over to you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Kyatka and I'm from Badmer. So today I'm going to speak about human evolution from genetic and cultural perspectives. One of the most essential aspects required in modern times is education. So education is mostly inclined towards cultural perspective. For example, in ancient India, our ancestors were taught orally with traditions and knowledge, and examination was taken practical practical way. For example, in Mahabharata, Pandavas and Kauravas were given test of hitting a bird with their arrows while seeing in water, which is up at the ceiling. And whereas if we take in general approach for education, we can take individuals of thinking and learning of the same concept
For example, addition of two numbers. Some count lines on fingers and some take tens and add them, and some different people have their different own ways. So first and then for one's place, while few ago in traditional way adding the ones then tens and goes on, like different people use different things to different people use different methods to use their things. So I would like to conclude by saying that every person, like human evolution, uh, uh,
Hmm.
human evolution is like different for different people, and different people use different methods. Like in some other countries, people use different methods. Like teaching methods will be different, so etc. and so forth.
Yeah, wonderful, Katika. Correct. I'm telling you, even when I started writing Hindi alphabets, the Devanagari Lipi, I did it possibly by me myself, without nobody, because I'm talking about so many years before. When we were of your age, at least I'm talking about, I learned Hindi for the first time when I was about 17, right? So on my own, I did not know what to do, how to do, but something told me I must learn. But when I graduated to write, even today when I write, the way I start putting the stroke for ka or la or ksha, maybe the way how I write, how Pranesh writes would possibly be different. Because Pranesh, Geetika, all you guys went through a formal way of having been taught in a classroom environment. It didn't happen with me. In my case, I did it on my own, seeing or inferring some things. We didn't have YouTube kind of things those years. I'm talking about so many years before. So almost, what, 38 years before. But today there is some standardization. But I'm unable to change it. Finally, I'm producing. When I write the characters, it possibly looks exactly the same way how you would write, how Pranesh would write, and how I would write. The journey I undertake is slightly different because the strokes I put maybe a different way of putting a stroke. And we can't say which is right or wrong because whatever is convenient, people do that way, right? That's really, really wonderful. That's a very nice thought process that yes, cultural identity has got something to say, that this will certainly have a big say when you start learning something new in the teaching learning environment or whatever it is. Wonderful. Well spoken. And okay, Geetika, you can continue the same idea.
Yes, yes. Good morning, one and all. I am Geetika Karthik from Bhagwin. So, as my sister Katika already said about one of the essential aspects, that's education, I would like to speak about other one. So, it's basically beauty. We cannot say beauty, it's not the outer beauty which has beauty, it's the inner beauty which has beauty. So, yeah, each and every aspect in modern world, in modern India, or modern times, you could say that each and every aspect is slightly inclined towards cultural aspect because our ancestors or their ancestors, they are holy human beings, we could say that. So, in a way, we are getting to know what is morally correct or what is morally wrong. Not so lawfully, say it's morally. Even in a law, even in a law doesn't have eyesight. Basically. So we could say morally there are some morally right and morally wrong. So in a nutshell, each and every person we were made to go through a path of way in which it was completely of struggles. Even the daughters or sons of the kings in our ancient India were gone through the same process of the way a hunter's kid or a hunter's child for education. They were ought to go to some a part of the kingdom, and all of them were sat together. We could say that. But if we take genetically the personality or inner beauty, it differs for each and every person. So for one it might be a good thing, but for the other it might be wrong. So we could not correct the moral right or wrong, as we could say rest and motion are relatively connected. In the same way, we could say right and wrong, morally right and morally wrong are both in a
relatively connected. We couldn't say that it's absolutely right and it's absolutely wrong, but we could say the truth which is hidden behind it. So basically, I would like to say that whatever your inner personality, let it be originated culturally or genetically, we couldn't be a hero in everyone's life. We should be the hero in our life, and we should not forget the truth which we are being given to. Yeah, that's how we like to conclude it.
That's very nice, Geetika. And she has given one single straight point. She says it is the moral values and the ethics what a family cherishes. What we thought was right will continue to be right for the right reasons. So let us remember to remain morally grounded and be sound on the values to continue this aspect of evolution of human race. Yeah, I think there's a lot could be talked about this per se. What we believed was right, say 50 years, 100 years before, may not hold any ground today, but still the silver line remains afoot. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, Mr. Joshi, I'm getting back to you. A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, to Kathy Khan, Geetika Atti, joined from Badmer. Okay, next I pin. Okay, Mr. Sojourn. Oh, that's really wonderful. The whole classroom is seeing on a big screen there. Yeah, over to the speaker, please. Mukund, right?
Yes, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes, sir. I am here to tell about.
Are you Mukund? Is your name Mukund?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Welcome, Master Mukund. He's joining us for the first time. It's really wonderful to see him wearing a beautiful, namam there. He looks so wonderful. Amazing. Yeah, please.
Thank you, sir. Culture revolution is the idea that human culture changes. That is, changes in social transmitted belief, knowledge, custom, skills, attitude, language, and so on.
Mukund, can you be slightly slow? Be slightly slow. We are unable to follow you. Be slightly slow. Thank you.
Can be described as Darwin evolution process that is similar in key respect to biological genetic evolution. Bearing this difference in mind, culture evolution, research have taken many of the same methods, tools and concepts that biologists have developed to explain biological diversity and complexity and use them to explain similar diversity and complexity in culture systems. This includes genetic method to reconstruct microevolution, historical relations between culture, ethnography fields, studies to document and explain contemporary cross-culture variation, laboratory experiments to determine the small-scale detail of culture microevolution, and mathematical models to explore the long-term and population level consequence of this microevolution process. Given this interdisciplinary breadth, it has been suggested that revolution theory may serve as a synthetic framework for unfairing the social science, just as evolution theory synthesized the biological science during the earlier 20th century. Thank you, sir.
Very nice, Mukund. The topic itself is slightly too vast to be spoken in about 3 minutes time. That's why I said anybody who picks up one point, he talks about cross-cultural emergence and cross-cultural connect. Yes, that is how. Even you talk of plants, animals, any organism which evolved always had a cross-cultural and a genetic identity. That's really wonderful. I think Mr. Sojan, your other two speakers can also continue in the same ID. Don't have to go out and come back. Can we have the next speaker?
Yes.
Yeah, please come. Please come. Please introduce yourselves to the audience.
Hi sir, I'm T. Vishnuvardhan Reddy sir from Srishada International School, Koppal.
Vishnuvardhan Reddy is also speaking for the first time with us. We really welcome you, Vishnuvardhan. You're a handsome boy and you look very confident. Let's see what Vishnu has got in stores for us. Over to you, Vishnu.
What makes human different from other animals? It's an old question. and when and one which may have given up as meaningless or answerless. The simple fact of our unparalleled range and adaptability as a species cannot be denied. And indeed, we seem to feel we are special for many more reasons than the other. One response to the instant is to having endured and like all other animals. Our weird and wonderful panel of behavior is a result of neither individual creativity or not cultural supervences, but is instead the simple product of millions of years of evolution, like the mating dance of birds or the territorial displays of octopi. If they seem unintelligible, that is simply because evolution is very slow and our mind are adapted not to our present environment but to the long vanished world of our ancestors. It may seem to us that behaviors such as joining religion cults, suicide bombing, and rascal prejudice are as irrational as they are undescribed. But in fact, on the account offered by standard environmental psychology, they are perfectly intelligible as the result of our Stone Age minds, misfiring and triggering behaviors that were adaptive long ago. Thank you.
Oh, that's really wonderful. Reddy again, yeah. As well, I think Mukund, Vishnuvardhan, and the other speaker have nicely divided, kind of the topics what they're going to touch upon. Yes, what you
Yes, sir.
spoke is in continuation or in identity with what Mukund spoke, and so beautifully. See how nicely the school is done. The students are seated in a classroom environment with a smart board, and the projector is showing all of them, all the speakers, and Vishnu is being captured through the camera to this side. He is looking at the screen where the other students are looking onto the master screen on the board. I really appreciate the efforts taken by your dear English master, Mr. Sojan Jose, and the school. It's a wonderful initiative. I really wish the other institutions do take this effort. Just because not everyone can speak, at least 20 of them are observing. I really thank your dear Mr. Sujan Jose for this wonderful idea. Thank you, sir, and let's have a round of applause to Master Vishnuvardhan Reddy. Over to the next speaker, please. I think it is Saraswati, right?
Yes.
Ah, Saraswati, over to you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Saraswati is also joined us for the first time. Ramayas welcomes her. And which class are you from, Saraswati?
Ninth.
Class 9. Please continue.
Long before the origins of agriculture, humans explained across the globe from the deserts of Australia to the frozen of the Canada Arctic. Surviving in this instance, diversity of habits depend on not on specifically habitation but on large bodies of culture transmitted now known abilities and skills that no single individual could figure out in his or her lifetime. Lacking local culture knowledgeable now may explore as pleased in supposedly harsh environment in which local adolescents would survive easily. Even among figuring societies, humans show an immense variety of social organisms, group size, and kinship structures and maintaining patterns. This diversity is at least particularly rooted on culture required on widely shared social rules. No other specific depends on culture information to this degree. Now, overall, much theory and advice now converges to the indicate that we are ultra culture specifics like any other whose brain, genes, and biological have been shaped by interacted between culture and genetically evolution. Thank you, sir.
Oh, that's really wonderful. And Saraswati spoke for the first time. Uh, Very nice, Saraswati. You spoke for the first time and did a good job. Yes, there was a time that people did not know anything what to do with their cultural identity at all. Today, it's very sure to say that human race is never complete without knowing their strong cultural backing or cultural background. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause to the children of Sharda Sri International School, Koppal from Karnataka. Thank you so much. I spin the next speaker, Kumari Pranati Atti from Tirupati. She's a student of Pramayas again. Pranati, over to you.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. My name is Pranati Atti from Tirupati. The topic I'm going to be talking about today is the emergence of human race from genetic and cultural perspectives. The race is not cultural, at least not completely. It is genetic. Online, I found the text of someone who shared experience about this. For a short time, when I was a child, I wished I were Japanese after watching a movie about a samurai. No matter how much I tried, I did not appear to be Japanese. Then I wanted to.
Pranati, can you be slightly slow? We are unable to follow you. Be slightly slow. Yeah.
Yes. Online, I found the text of someone who shared experience about this. For a short time, when I was a child, I wished I were Japanese after watching a movie about a samurai. No matter how much I tried, I did not appear to be Japanese. Then I wanted to be Kryptonian, but I still could not fly because I was not Kryptonian. My mother was a black Puerto Rican and my father was a white Puerto Rican, and I was never fully accepted by either the white or the black. Tolerated like a favorite pet, yes. Accepted as an equal, no, because of my genetic makeup. My culture is Puerto Rican, but my genetics make me feel like a hybrid. Your genetics gives you your looks, but your culture can be adopted or trained into you. So because of my past experience, I would have to say race is born into you because of your genetic makeup, but culture is something we are taught from childhood by our parents. Think of it like the colors of the rainbow. There isn't such thing as different colors. There is simply a spectrum of wavelengths, and the separation of those wavelengths based on how we perceive them leads us to categorize separately for descriptive and practical reasons. The way we categorize colors is cultural, but the underlying scientific differences that lead us to categorize them are not. Their race is very much the same. We use rather sloppy and imprecise racial categorizations that often have cultural, historical, or other motivations for their origin. But the underlying concept that humans are divided into concentric nests of unrelatedness, some being very close and producing closely interlinked populations with interlinked histories and closer physical experiences and genetic makeups. So, with both colors of the rainbow and race, they are cultural constructions in how we define and think of them. But both have a strong underlying scientific basis. It is simply how we view and label and divide them that is made up. When you see the color red or blue, or you can see white or black man walking down the road, the reason you can tell them apart at a glance isn't cultural, but rather basic scientific observation, and in that sense, they are certainly not cultural. You would be stunned to how many believe that Muslims are a race, and if you convert or revert to Islam, you are now of the Muslim race. Culture is what we're exposed to through our life. American cultures include things like Halloween and Christmas and Thanksgiving and Easter and Hanukkah and Labor Day and summer vacation and spring break, and our version of New Year celebration is different. We also have high school graduations, which many cultures do not celebrate. These are just a few things that make up American culture. Some are also celebrated elsewhere. Others have been appropriated by others, and we can never complain about it. That's it, sir. Thank you.
Okay, before I continue further, let me tell you, Pranati, you are looking like a Japanese yourselves. Today you are looking like a sumo wrestler. Did you try to do that? You say, let me look like a Japanese because I'm talking about a Japanese evolution. What you said is absolutely right. You know, there is a saying in Hindi, Kawwa chala hans ke chaal, to bhool gaya apni chaal. I think people from Hindi speaking, at least Pranesh will be able to infer this much better. I have to accept what I am and do the best of what I am. Very simple. If I am born as a crow, if I am born as a crow, whatever I do, whichever exercise I do, can I ever become a swan in my life, in my entire life? What I can become is the best of the crows. If I am born as a crow, what stops me in behaving and learning and doing best, understanding my genetical and cultural mapping, and graduate to become a wonderful crow, a best of the crows? This is what is all about. So, I'm totally in support of what you said. Is the genetic mapping has to be regarded and respected. See, why do you think people from what Nigerian, African countries, they're extremely good in field sports? Talk of basketball, talk of athletics. We talk of Asaf Powell, or anybody who's a record holder today. It's very very difficult to break their records. The reason is their genetic mapping and their cultural upbringing had a very big say in what they are today. Similarly, somebody is extremely good in computers, extremely good in mathematics, extremely good in subjects, great in teaching. We had Nalanda University with us. So we'll have to understand this. That's a very well spoken, well researched way of putting it across. Thank you so much, Pranati. You made us very, very proud. A good round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, to Pranati Atti from Tirupati. I see Kritik has quickly went and did a changeover and came. Kritik, did you change your shirt now to look better or what? Same shirt? Okay. Maybe I didn't notice it that.
No, laptop got problem.
Okay. Maybe I saw a different shade of shirt altogether. Earlier you logged in through another device, right? Which had a
It's a
different
laptop.
pigmentation. Okay. I was also not wrong. I thought possibly Kritik wanted to culturally emerge better, to look better on the speaking on the lighter side. Thank you, Kritik, for your indulgence to look better through a better laptop. I have the other speaker joining. Yes, Master Pranesh Rangarajan, currently joining from Bengaluru, right? Or you're at Bengaluru now. Over to you,
Yeah,
Pranesh.
Bangalore only.
Yeah, okay.
Just a minute. Namo Vaha. I would like to start with a famous sloka from Rigveda, which forms the very much basis of our own culture. Agni mile purohitam yajyasya devam ritvidam votaram ratnadhatamam. For everybody, should actually recite this because it gives a very beautiful meaning. I praise the spark of insight, which on rendering this chant, it becomes itself a light and invokes a transformation in me, bringing me more and more powers to myself in order to continue my own duties. So such has been the reverence of Agni, or so called the fire, in our culture, which has been embedded since time immemorial. Despite the fact that fire was something that the Aryan invasion theory has also been discussed about extensively. Now, previously we used to do something called as Agni Sakshi, that is I promise in the name of fire, or I promise in front of fire as a person that I won't be doing this, I will be committed to so and so duties, I won't be able to, I won't be making others fool out of my own karma, etc., etc. Now, similarly, the same Agni has been very much useful in clearing of the excess of dead bodies that came as a result of coronavirus pandemic. So this shows that culture, despite being extensively unused for a long time, has been put into use. Now, similarly, when we talk about deep thinking, I would like to cite another sloka, that this is taken from the second chapter, 54th sloka of the Bhagavad Gita. Sthita pragyasya ka bhasha samadhistasya keshava sthitarik kim prabhasheta kimasita vrajetaki. Now, the same meaning being asked, what sort of qualities does a stable mind possess? So for which one has to see his posture, his way of thinking, his ability to solve the questions, his peers, his groups, etc. Now same thing we say in English, that tell me your friends and enemies, I will tell you what you are. You tell me, you comment on a particular topic, we can say who you are actually. So culture, hasn't changed much, but in fact, culture has been used in order to, enrich ourselves for on a longer run basis. Now, similarly, culture, whether it is followed in India or whether it is followed in United States, our culture remains the same wherever we go, wherever we come. Now, when Anushree had spoken about Aryan invasion theory, let me also tell the basic concept of Sati Pratha, which was very much in use during the ancient times, until before the famous person named Raja Ram Mohan Roy, who read Manusmriti probably. He would have read this. He would have read this phrase also. Yatra naryastu pujyante ramante tatra devataah yatraitastu na pujyante sarvasta traphala kriya. So after reading this, he would have also thought, yeah, why don't we bring out a revolutionary in bringing out the equality in the women's life as well. Yes, women are also equal entities. We need to protect them, and we can also be able to bring out a new change in the society. See, everybody is human, and culture is the only factor which embeds each and everybody of us in bringing out the so-called togetherness in the culture, which the modern day civilization is lacking behind. Now, last I would like to say about the current affairs, about the topic of gratification that the culture has been pretty much losing in our own day-to-day life. Now, earlier we never had so called craving for commodity or particular way of lifestyle. Now due to the influence of each other's culture, we tend to forget our own culture as a result. For example, Vishwamitra Rishi, who wanted to consume meat in case of severe drought in which he couldn't even be able to get his own bhiksha, after offering the meat to the Lord Indra, he couldn't even able to get himself converted to non-vegetarian. Now the craving is such that people think in a fashion sense that eating non-veg is like one can be cool, one can mingle with people. One can be with people, but people don't know the long-term consequences of the greenhouse gas emissions that the scientists and researchers and various NGOs are actually quoting this cultural misappropriation in our own society. So similarly, recently I heard that even this Neuralink that the famous Elon Musk had proposed about, is to bring about the artificial gratification induced on the mentally ill patient, so that they can also behave normally, and they can also mingle with the society in the general perspective. But missing out on culture is something that one makes it a very inappropriate affair. Our culture is something that which has been deeply embedded in our own Indian culture, and I think that we should all try to preserve whatever our family practices have been following irrespective of the fact that whether we move to any other foreign country or whether we stay in India or whether we go to any other region for that. Thank you.
Pranesh, wonderful. Pranesh always has a great information through the Vedic scriptures and shlokas. Agni Vilehe Purohitam, the initial verse of the Vedas talks about the respect, and the life starts with fire. And he nicely connected with that Agni Sakshi. Whatever the promise made in the presence of, or keeping your presence based on the fire, which is basis of the life, always was held with highest reverence in our culture. And he continued to speak about Yatra nari pujyate tatra ramante devata. He says the whole celestial beings are happy wherever women folk is respected. And he also spoke about eschewing or reduction in the non-vegetarian footprint, which has got various cultural and social. I won't say evils. I mean, I'm no one to say the word evil there, which has got a negative footfall in the entire society. Pranesh, there is some problem with your video connectivity today. It got stuck in between. It's okay. We could fairly hear you well and good. Thank you so much. That's very, very, very nicely thought about and very nicely stringed. You're known to connect the unusual connects. And if I can take the liberty of what Pranati spoke and what you spoke, the best of the sumo wrestlers, the best of the wrestlers in Haryana, the fighters, boxers, they're all pure vegetarians. They get best of the protein from millets and parapu based food and not from the non-vegetarian food. That's very nicely thought of and put.
Sir, I am actually talking about the fact that culture is influencing people to go in a negative way.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Very nice. Thank you, Pranesh. I'm pinning a round of applause to Pranesh, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, the next speaker we have, I'm pinning Miss Shivani Rajesh, Kumari Shivani Rajesh from Coimbatore, a very regular speaker and a very passionate speaker. Over to you, Shivani.
Yes, sir. Good morning to one and all present here. My name is Shivani and I'm from class 11 of Air Force School, Coimbatore. I'm going to share my views on today's topic, which is emergence of human race from genetic and cultural perspectives. Racism can be defined as the belief that individual races of people have distinctive cultural features that are determined by the hereditary factors make some races inherently superior to the others. The idea that one race has natural superiority than the others created abusive behavior towards the member of the other races. Racism is the illogical belief that a particular race has distinctive cultural traits endowed due to the genetic factors that make individual races inherently superior to the others and give them the right to exploit the inferior races. When we openly state the meaning of racism, you can see how inexplicable and unimaginable such a thought can be. But racism is so deep-seated in our consciousness and subconsciousness that we have long bowed down to such infuriating ideals. Such instances of subtle racism within a society are rampant and lead to an inexcusable behavior of people towards others, such as mental stress, social harassment, and even physical assaults. Since we have left racist comments and activities unnoticed, it is left untreated and leads to more division and anger between the two different people of different backgrounds. It is a never-ending cycle, vicious cycle, and a massive crisis in today's world. We should never judge others for the way they look or for the way they speak. All people are born equal, and nothing can change that. Narrow-minded thoughts like racism should have been extinguished with an increase in educated people and the intermixing of various races. Still, sadly, such behavior is a blatant reality and shows no signs of toning down. No one can choose to be black, white, dark, fair, or anything in particular. God has made us, and there is nothing that should make us feel guilty for that. It is ridiculous and inhuman to make fun of people due to their cultural background or color of skin. We keep talking about how modern society embraces diverse cultures and diverse people. We try to accomplish gigantic things like world peace, eradicate hunger and poverty, but we are not ready to unite to make such changes happen. Racism is a barrier between the social advancement of a society. It is possible to eradicate racism in our society if we are more open about such sensitive topics and give simple matters like this a thought. Since racism is such a deep-seated belief, we will need some time to change. People should acknowledge the fact that to achieve anything significant, we need to let go of narrow-minded beliefs. Only then we can advance as a society of the world. Thank you.
Really, really wonderful, nicely thought and spoken Shivani, it's more than any research. I believe it is your own mindset. You're very, very unhappy that why racism, kind of discrimination based on caste, creed, color, language, the way they look, the way they pronounce, the way they eat. Nothing should discriminate people. Yes, in the emergence of human race on a genetical and cultural mapping, racism played a very, very strong and a negative role, and that suppression continued for so long. Today, the world is opened up to a great kind of accepting things the way it is for the right reasons. And I think you touched a very, very, very right, sensitive, and a true aspect which has been a very big barrier in the growth, the emergence, growth, and sustenance of human race with all happiness quotient, and not being denied to everyone just because he is from that part of country, just because he or she looks like this. That's very, very nicely put. Yeah, I mean, yes, this itself is a topic to be spoken or debated at length. Yes, thanks. That's a very wonderful way of putting it across. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause to Miss Shivani Rajesh.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, children.
Thank you, sir.